Is Alchemized the best book I've read in a long time? Yes. Do I recommend it? No. All right. Clearly, it's impossible to talk about Alchemized without getting bogged down by all the discourse going on. So let me get my hot takes out of the way first before I get into the specifics of what worked and what didn't in this book. 1. I do not care that this novel was originally Harry Potter fanfiction. The author has made a clear statement that they do not support J.K. Rowling's bigotry and have restricted access to their fanworks as a result, among other reasons. 2. Writing about something bad is not romanticizing it. And 3, we really need to get better at understanding that good and bad can actually be objective. The ethics of fanfiction have become a hot topic since the release of Alchemized. For those who aren't aware, the book once had what I would call a first draft called Manacled. It was a fanfiction that shipped Draco Malfoy and Hermione Granger from the Harry Potter franchise in an alternate universe influenced heavily by The Handmaid's Tale, written by Margaret Atwood. I did not read Manacled. I was never a Harry Potter fan in the way that a bunch of other people were. I read the first 3 or 4 books. Same with the movies, really. It's not that I didn't like them. I just had other things I preferred to read, like the Click series or anything written by Mary Higgins Clark. And by the time I got into fandom spaces, J.K. Rowling was becoming a bit of a bigot anyway, so I decided not to interact with its associated media. You know, like a normal person. While I thought it was pretty gauche and annoying to continue making Harry Potter someone's whole personality, I was and still am able to understand that people crave nostalgia. And if they think that their fanfictions are a reclamation of their favorite childhood characters, who am I to tell them they're wrong, even if I think it's bullshit? Many have expressed concern that the success of Alchemized is bringing unnecessary attention and thus profit to the Harry Potter franchise. And while I see what these people are getting at, I'm not sure I agree. The target audience for this dark fantasy, and I mean dark fantasy, already know what Harry Potter is and have likely already consumed all the media for it. Most of us at least know the basic plot simply through the diffusion of information through the cultural zeitgeist that this series was. But what about younger fans of this book who didn't grow up with Harry Potter? Okay, sure. But even if the assumption that JK is profiting from Alchemized is true, we as individuals cannot and should not police others' curiosity, which is why I am a big supporter of the buy that shit secondhand movement. Like, don't even check it out from the library. This is the only time I will tell you not to support your local library, because more demand equals more purchases and more money in a transphobe's pockets. Buy the books off Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or Buy Nothing group. I don't care. Pirate it. Steal it. I don't give a shit. Offering alternatives for people to explore instead of going on a self-righteous tirade is way more productive in my humble opinion. But if you're gonna steal it, just steal it from a chain, okay? Don't take from local business. Oh no, but if the book was based on a fan fiction that the author wrote, then that means Alchemized isn't actually original and Senlin Yu shouldn't be profiting off of it. Hey, listen, come here. I do not give a single fuck about copyright law when the victim is a billion-dollar franchise. Let's ignore the fact that the author completely removed any reference to Rowling's intellectual property. Let's pretend like they didn't create an entirely new world and an entirely new magic system to make this their own story. If Senlin Yu had changed nothing about Manacled and genuinely published the fanfiction as it was to make money, I would not care. You could not pay me to care. The only time I give a singular shit about copyright infringement is when smaller creators are being preyed on, which is usually the case anyway. I'm looking at you, fast fashion companies and AI dick writers. No, but seriously, there seems to be this weird expectation in fan spaces that you shouldn't desire compensation for your work. And I understand this attitude from the lens of, hey, if you bring attention to this whole community, then some asshole can decide to shut the party down, Anne Rice. But that's not what's being said here. The implication being made is that because Alchemized is based on a fanfiction that was based on another series, Senlin Yu didn't work hard enough to earn their flowers. And that is bullshit. Because like I said, they scrubbed out anything that belongs to another intellectual property. Had I not known about this book's roots, I wouldn't have guessed that it was Harry Potter fanfiction anyway. Actually, if I hadn't known, I would have assumed it was Reylo fanfiction. And there's another very prolific, very popular author currently who almost exclusively writes published Reylo fanfiction. So why am I not seeing the same discourse around her? Better yet, why am I not seeing the same discourse around 50 Shades of Grey, which was published Twilight fanfiction? Or what about Sarah J. Maas's ACOTAR series, which is published Beauty and the Beast fanfiction. Maybe Beauty and the Beast is public domain now, but I don't know. Or what about the Mortal Instruments series, which is also published Harry Potter fanfiction? Does nobody else remember the Simon Snow series by Rainbow Rowell? If I'm not mistaken, that is also Harry Potter fanfiction. Well, maybe I'm not seeing it because, one, I wasn't chronically online back when those series blew up, and two, because Sarah J. Maas and Cassandra Clare have had plenty of scandal outside of just publishing their fan works. I'm talking serious accusations of straight up line level plagiarism here. But tossing Allie Hazelwood and Rainbow Rowell into the mix, I'm noticing a bit of a pattern. Tell me if you see it in the comments, because I'm not going to say it. I'm just going to imply it and put it on the screen. And I mean, yeah, there's also the fact that this book sprouted in the belly of a highly contentious franchise. It's going to make people obsessively critical just because they can follow a thread all the way back to Rowling. And like, look, I get not wanting to support a bigot. There are lots of places and people I don't buy from for that reason, but this really weird vitriol directed at the trans author who has publicly distanced themselves from Rowling, by the way, is kind of sort of approaching touch grass territory a little bit, respectfully. Every original idea we think we have is informed by everything we've experienced and consumed in our lives. It's arguable that nothing is ever truly original anyway, so if that's the case, where are we drawing the line here? When can something be called original enough to be published when we are constantly taking inspiration from others? Basically, the only difference between Senlin Yu and some random person formulating their main character after Hermione is that Manacled existed first as proof of it. Had Senlin Yu not published Manacled on Archive of Our Own first, I'm not even entirely sure we'd be having this conversation, because we could all guess what they drew inspiration from, but we wouldn't actually have solid evidence to reference. That's all I'm saying. And now let's switch this lens of moral outrage from the concept of Alchemized to the content of Alchemized, because there's drama there too. And it all really seems to boil down to people not understanding that this book is not romantasy. It is a war epic with smut and not even a lot of it. I don't know who came online and decided to market this book as romantasy, but it wasn't Senlin Yu. Listen, I'm usually on the side of book talkers and find that a lot of criticisms of the platform are rooted in misogyny, but it's not unreasonable to say that short form content is going to be reductive at best. Maybe they saw enemies to lovers romance and dark fantasy in the same sentence and assumed it would be like, I don't know, Fourth Wing or ACOTAR or something. Which, you know, honestly, the inclusion of the enemies to lovers trope in Senlin Yu's Instagram announcement is probably what did the most damage, which is unfortunate. It's not inaccurate, but I think that invoking the name of that trope makes mainstream romantasy readers think that it's going to be like all of the other enemies to lovers books they've read that aren't actually true enemies to lovers fictions, but that's another topic for a different day. What I'm saying is some readers did not anticipate that Alchemized would be as dark as it was, but that's not really a reason to say that the book is bad. Not to me, at least. And especially when there are clear trigger warnings. I do wish they'd been at the front of the book personally, but that's preference, I guess. For those who have been around here long enough, you know that I do my very best to leave caveats in my discussion so that I can rate the book in a way that feels accurate to my experience while also acknowledging that sometimes a book just wasn't written with me in mind. I didn't realize that that was an anomaly in the book review space, though. There are a lot of people claiming that Alchemized is too dark and shouldn't have been written. There are some who claim that Senlin Yu and other people who enjoy the book are rape apologists, which is the wildest take of them all. And all that seems to stem from the fact that these people can't seem to break out of their black and white understanding of morality. And before you jump down my throat, no, I don't think rape is a good thing, okay? This is a book about war. There is no good. There is only ever bad and less bad. The fact that the author doesn't shy away from this is not some weird damning evidence that they're a bad person. This is actually a small point of contention in one of my D&D games thematically. Lawful Good Cleric says that selling out information that led to an ambush is bad and wrong. Chaotic Neutral Monk says that any one of the party members could have done the same thing if they hadn't been picked up by the infantry before poverty overtook them first. When times are desperate, morality shifts. And in this circumstance, in Alchemized, the options were state-mandated rape by a familiar person who also doesn't want to do it, or state-mandated rape by a stranger who will gladly violate you and probably also harm you in other ways while they're at it. Tell me which one you'd choose in that circumstance. And no, killing yourself isn't an option. It wasn't an option in the book either. There seem to be quite a few people in online spaces who go around talking about Alchemized as if it's only some sort of rape fantasy. There are 2 scenes in the whole book where this happens. It's a bit disingenuous to imply that that's all the novel is. Nobody is reading this book for the rape, okay? Maybe there are 1 or 2 sickos out there, I don't know. But it's ridiculous when they speak as if that's somehow the selling point, because it's not. I don't see anyone saying the same thing about American Horror Story. Who remembers the pilot of Hotel? Or Law & Order SVU. People want to read Alchemized for the story around it. I've seen similar complaints about dark romances like Haunting Adeline and stuff, but I think the difference is that Alchemized is one of the first books of its kind in the fantasy space, which has been kind of sanitized lately, in my opinion. So it's like really jarring when something so dark comes out when everything else is so, ooh, so fluffy. But I don't know, that's just how I'm seeing it. And yes, I'm saying rape because 1, I'm not monetized, 2, I have no sponsors, and 3, the epidemic of self-censorship is getting on my nerves. These words are uncomfortable for a reason. Please use them. I understand people use graped and unalived or whatever to evade censorship on certain platforms, but it started to creep into our everyday conversations, and it's really chipping away at the reality of these crimes. It's ridiculous, and we as a society really need to start pushing back before these corporations turn us into palatable social billboards forever. Anyway, those who believe Alchemized is bad and terrible because of how dark it is have every right to be disturbed by the contents of the book, but the disturbing nature is the whole point. A book is not bad just because you don't like it, and that's a stance I've maintained since forever. It seems that a lot of people read Alchemized and complain about the bugs when they're really supposed to be features. Yes, the writing is dry. Yes, the writing is repetitive. Yes, the first half is fucking boring because the author is painting a picture of what it's like to be a prisoner of war. Yes, there's a lot of fucked up shit happening because the author is painting a picture of what it's like to experience war. Yes, it doesn't make sense that Helena is so supportive of Luke despite him not being a terribly good friend to her, because the author is painting a picture of what it's like to be influenced by a cult. Like, these things people complain about aren't side effects of thoughtless writing. It's intentional, which is why I love this book so much. Put yourself in my shoes here. When it came to the end of the story, I was so prepared for more devastation. I was prepared for everything to go wrong, just like the characters who had known a lifetime of war and strife and struggle. And when that didn't happen, I almost cried. And it wasn't this whole ordeal of jubilant excitement at war being over and wrongs being righted. It was relief. After 1,000 pages of pain, the sudden lack of it was so jarring that stillness felt like ecstasy. There didn't need to be any fanfare for me to feel so intensely, and that was fucking cool to experience as a reader. And that was a payoff that was set up from page 1 because of this kind of writing. Look, you don't have to like the way Alchemized was written, even if it was written intentionally. That's okay, but to write it off as just bad is criminal. I think of media enjoyment a lot like a Taiji-2 or a yin-yang symbol. There's good media you like, and within it is good media you don't like. And then there's bad media, and then there's the bad media that you do like. And as much as we want to sit around and preach about how all art is subjective and whatever, there are legitimately objective measures as to what makes something better or worse within different demographics. And that's okay. It's not elitist, it's science. Oh my God, does that sound like an AI line? Fuck. I write my own scripts, I promise. Now, that doesn't mean Alchemized was perfect. Not in the slightest. Senlin Yu uses a lot of what I call load-bearing words. These are terms, phrases, what have yous, that I believe they defaulted to when they couldn't think of another way to describe what was happening. For example, in the first part, we read that the color was leached from something multiple times. It was like kind of annoying. We get the same thing later on with Kane Farron looking incensed. And I mean, I liked the use of that word the first couple times, but then it kept happening. And sometimes the load-bearing words were close enough together that I was almost offended. Like Paul's dancing eyes at the end of the book, literally 3 paragraphs apart. I also caught a couple typos, unfortunately. On page 195, the book reads, "won the third day" and not "on the third day," which is one of the less egregious typos I've come across, but it's still there, so like, get good. And on page 520, we have a sentence reading, quote, "but based on the way the alloying was interfering with regeneration, blah, 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 blah." I think alloying was supposed to be alloy. That sentence specifically has a lot of words ending in ing, so I can see how that would get lost in there. But again, that's not really an excuse because editing teams just need to do better. If I can catch it, you can too. I'm just saying. I think this book could have been shorter by about 50 pages, if I'm being honest. Most people suggest it should be cut by 200 plus, but I don't agree. For the most part, every single scene felt just as long or short as it needed to be to have the most impact. But the last 150 or so pages, I struggled a little bit. And maybe that was just my perception. I mean, the characters don't know they're nearing the end of the book, and I want them to wrap it up. Maybe I was just being impatient. I'm not sure. I do understand criticisms of the way the magic system is explained, but I don't necessarily share it. Not completely. I am the type of reader who loves being placed in the setting of a book with hardly any context. It makes me happy when an author trusts me to go along with it and pick up details as the story progresses. Senlin Yu does just this. And for the most part, I was able to understand the magic system in Alchemised without an issue. The differences between vivimancy, necromancy, and animancy are still kind of lost on me, and maybe that's the point, because they're like super similar, and that was a major theme throughout the book, but I'm not entirely sure. I would have liked if that specifically was a little more thoroughly explained. Everything else, though, made sense to me. When it comes to the history of the world, I mean, yeah, they definitely tell instead of show. It's extremely difficult to write high fantasy without telling readers the history in some way anyhow. I'm not mad about it. It didn't feel too front-loaded or anything. The lore dumping, as it were, was spread out enough that I wasn't bothered, personally. There were a couple scenes where I felt the characters weren't behaving like they should, and on the whole, I don't believe that they ever really do need to behave irrationally all the time, but for Cain Farron to leave Helena's nutrition up to his wife and then somehow become shocked that she was starving Helena on purpose was really fucking weird. I guess I can pull the excuse of, oh, he was just too busy doing the bidding of Murrow that he didn't consider the possibility out of my ass, but Cain Farron literally designed himself to not be that way, as we find out later in the story. I don't know. That part was weird to me, and I didn't love it. Sorry. There was one thing, though, that I was side-eyeing as far as intellectual property goes, too. Not that it bothered me or anything. Like I said before, I don't care much about copyright law, but I just think it's hilarious that the book's Christ figure was named Luke, spelled L-U-C, short for Lucian or Lucian. It got even more funny when I learned that Senlin Yu also writes Reylo fanfiction. If I had to critique their proximity to fandom spaces, it would be because of this, genuinely. If you're trying to distance yourself from one franchise and end up intentionally or accidentally standing closer to another, it does unfortunately call into question the writer's ability to fully stand on their own. However, I can also understand if this kind of thing is simply a nod to their fandom contributions. Sometimes it's okay to be tongue-in-cheek. Some people say that the Order of the Eternal Flame is too close in proximity to the Order of the Phoenix, but honestly, that criticism holds even less weight than the Luke thing, in my opinion. J.K. Rowling does not own the rights to the concept of a cleansing fire. Plenty of other fantasy worlds use flame imagery for their resistance. Flames in themselves are symbolic of renewal through destruction. That's where the mythology of the Phoenix comes from. Naturally, knowing that Alchemised began as Manacled really highlights the similarities, so yeah, it's easier to say lol is just a ripoff, but like I said before, if Manacled was never made public, we wouldn't know to make these connections anyway, so it's just like confirmation bias ultimately. And that's it. Those are all the critiques I have of the book. I don't want to make this video too long, but know that there was a lot that I enjoyed about Alchemised. I might do another video about it at another time, but for the sake of brevity, I think I'm going to leave it here for now. All in all, I'm so stoked for this book to get a paperback release because I will be reading it again. And that is the first time that I've said that on this channel. It's not a maybe. It's not a if I feel like it. It's an I'm buying it the day it's released so I can mark it the fuck up with annotations because I borrowed my copy from my friend. And for that, I must give Alchemised 4.5 stars out of 5. The highest rating I've given any book in years. That's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed, and please like and subscribe if you did. I'm curious to see what others' opinions are. If you have any, feel free to put them in the comments. It'll honestly help me a lot. Okay. Oh shit, my sign off won't fit here properly. Oh, fuck. Well, don't forget to like and subscribe, even though I'm saying it for the second time. Thanks for sticking around. I'll see you next time. Fuck. That's not even a rhyme.